Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with me once again today. I want to talk to you about judgment today. This is a real pitfall on the twin flame journey, but it doesn't have to be if we understand it and know how to shift it so it's not creating limitations for us. I want to read you a Taoist parable. This is one of my favorite parables, and I think about it a lot, actually. There are many versions with subtle variations, so this might be slightly different than how you might have heard it before. But it goes like this. There was once a farmer in ancient China who owned a horse. "You're so lucky," his neighbors told him, "to have a horse to pull the cart for you." "Maybe," the farmer replied. One day he didn't latch the gate properly and the horse ran off. "Oh no, this is terrible news," his neighbors cried. "Such terrible misfortune." "Maybe," the farmer replied. A few days later, the horse returned, bringing with it 6 wild horses. "How fantastic! You're so lucky," his neighbors told him. "Now you're rich." "Maybe," the farmer replied. The following week, the farmer's son was breaking in one of the wild horses when it kicked out and broke his leg. "Oh no," the neighbors cried. "Such bad luck all over again." "Maybe," the farmer replied. The next day, soldiers came and took away all the young men to fight in the war. The farmer's son was left behind. "You're so lucky," his neighbors cried. "Maybe," the farmer replied. What we can learn from the farmer is that we often don't know what is good and what is bad for us in the moment. Each time something occurred, the neighbors jumped to conclusions. The horse ran away. That's terrible. The horse came back with 6 more. That's fantastic. The neighbors are using surface judgment or ego judgment. In fairness to the neighbors, they hold these judgments based on beliefs and programs. The son gets thrown off the horse, for an example, and is injured. On the surface, we believe it's bad to get injured because injury causes pain, and based on millions of years of programming, injury can lead to death. But on the flip side, injury can also be a life-changing experience. Think about a near-death experience and how someone's whole trajectory of life can change in an instant. Injury can give us time to think and rest. It can build perseverance. In the parable, it prevents the son from having to face the possibility of far more injury and death than being thrown from the horse. When we're on the twin flame journey, a lot of things happen to us. For most people, it's a journey over years, sometimes even decades. Many situations are going to come up that make you judge the situation with your person as bad. Maybe they aren't talking to you. That would certainly be judged as bad. Maybe they were with someone else. Maybe you haven't heard from them in a long time. What is your first reaction when something triggers you? For most people, it's judgment. And then you read into it your own story based on your fears, programs, and things that have happened to you in the past. We all have expectations of how things should be. And when anything differs from those expectations, it makes us afraid. There's a good chance your twin won't meet all of your expectations, and also a good chance you won't meet all their expectations either. This is likely to trigger negative judgment. Is this person my twin or not? Will also create a lot of judgment. In some cases, you'll meet someone new, and that can create an instant judgment because you're wondering now, who is the real twin? In all of these situations, only hindsight can provide the real answers. This doesn't just happen on the twin flame journey, of course. This happens every day in life. I'm going to be posting a video on Light and Liberty later that uses the same parable in regard to modern day politics. You might want to check it out. But let's think for a moment about the person that loses their job. That's very bad, isn't it? A situation like that can make us judge a lot. But losing their job could also give them the time to work on what they truly love. Maybe it's writing a book or their spirituality. And this opens the door to a whole new career that's more creative and exciting and ultimately very successful. What appeared as negative really was a positive, but it's only with hindsight that the good appears. What I'm getting at here is that when we judge every situation that happens to us, we don't leave any room for possibility. Even if we judge something as good, that can limit our perspective because we can become too attached to the judgment of good. And then when that changes too, because everything is going to change, we assume the change must represent that something unfavorable is coming. As someone who's self-employed, this happens a lot. Your business is doing well and all appears good on the surface, but eventually you'll hit a time where business is slow. You really have to train yourself to trust those times and not see them as you're failing, but see it instead as a time of transition. The same is true for the twin flame journey. Changes in the energy mark times of transition. From a surface perspective, transition often shows up in the form of challenges, which are read by the mind as negative. But the truth is, we just don't know where the situation is leading us, and we aren't meant to know, because, for one, we're learning to trust in a higher power. But two, we're being trained to let go of judgment. Judgment creates fear, fear creates worry, worry and fear create victimhood, victimhood creates disempowerment. You get the idea of how this can affect us in our daily life. It's only with perspective, and often quite long-term perspective, that we can see the whole picture. Understand that your perspective is hampered by your programs. The more programs you release, the higher your perspective becomes. This is why it's so important not to let your judgments of where you are on the twin flame journey cause you to give up on your spiritual journey, because your perspective in that moment is being hampered by your belief that your twin has deserted you. That may not be the case, but if you stop growing spiritually, you'll likely stop clearing your programs, which may cause you to stay at one level of consciousness, never rising above to the bigger picture. You need to bring perspective to your twin flame journey before making judgments. I hear over and over, I know I won't be with my twin because blah, blah, blah. How do you know? If that's a belief you hold, then separate that from what a higher perspective of the situation would be. Your beliefs create your reality, so you can stick with that belief, or you can surrender any judgment about what's happening and let God write the final page of your story. Remember, your perspective is always going to expand as long as you keep going. Even your perspective will change over time in ways that you can't see. So don't judge or attach to certain perspectives. I'm sure you can think of something that's happened in the past that seemed so terrible at the time you thought you'd never get out of that dark place. Yet looking back today, it really didn't matter to the bigger picture of your life. Triggers are finite. They come, and just as suddenly they go. In the moment, the pain can be excruciating, but the pain ends. This too shall pass, because everything passes away. It's a blip in time, so step back from judgment, observe, and wait for the complete context to unfold. The story of our farmer doesn't have an ending, because until the farmer leaves the earth, he won't have the final and most accurate perspective of all, which is the perspective of spirit. Until then, we must trust our higher self and spirit guides to show us the truth of that perspective. We've all heard the saying, God works in mysterious ways. The human mind can't fathom the ways of God because Source holds unlimited perspective. Our minds can't process that. We have to relearn how to trust God and trust ourselves enough to trust our intuition. Judgment gets in the way. Our expansion right now depends on leaving judgment behind and trusting that everything happens to us for our highest and greatest good. That also means that when you get the guidance to do something, you do it even when your ego is kicking up a fuss. This opens the door to the highest timeline not just for yourself, but for Earth and humanity. When change shows up in your life and your ego tells you this is good or bad, say maybe. Stay neutral. Remember Saint Germain told us last year, stay neutral. This is what he meant. When you say maybe, you give the ego nothing to fight against. If you say, no, that's not true, your ego might start going over the past, looking for negative examples of how it is true. But if you just leave it at maybe, it ends the interaction. The clearing that we've gone through with Mars retrograde has cleared programming that was creating a lot of judgment. And now we can be more trusting that things are aligned, despite what the surface looks like. Many of you can look back at your twin flame journey, and regardless of whether you're in your dream relationship or not, you have enough perspective to say, wow, I've come a long way. I'm a completely different person because I trusted enough to clear away the distortions and let myself flow right into major transformation. And even still, you have more transformation coming, and more and more and still more. I'm sure there are many, many times on this journey you thought you'd never be where you are today. Even today, some of you might be thinking that your life looks a mess and you're struggling with judgment regarding your current situation. How many dark nights of the soul have you encountered? How many times have you made negative judgments about your twin journey, only to reach a breakthrough a short time later? Short-term judgments can't define your long-term journey. We don't know how the story is going to end. It's much too soon to make judgments about what is good or bad, whether you'll end up with your twin or not, whether the world will change for good or for ill, how that clearing you just had will change your life. One door may have just closed, but you might find, with perspective, that you should have closed that door long ago because 3 doors opened in its place. Learn to have faith in the good, and that the good is always guiding you to your highest timeline, even when the material world appears to be crumbling around you. Especially then. So next time your ego starts making judgments, just say maybe and keep going. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would love it if you would do that. Also, if you could give this video a like while you're doing that. If there's someone that you could share this video with, I would appreciate that too. If you would like more information about me, I'll link my website below. Otherwise, until next time, I'm sending you all a lot of love.